But we do know that we will be having a Fat Tuesday pancake dinner on Tuesday, February 21st. The dinner will be served from 5:30 to 7. You can come whenever in that block of time, get a pancake, have some sausage or some sort of meat and a beverage, and enjoy just a time of fellowship. For those that may not be aware, Fat Tuesday is a pretty traditional, actually, Christian preparation for the Christian holiday. The season of Lent is a time of fasting and, in some sense, deprivation. And so it was the tradition in the church to rid the cabinets of all your flour and sweets as you prepared this holiday or this season of preparation. And so we'll make pancakes or sweet cakes for that time. So all are welcome. It'll happen at the church, 82 West Central Street in Franklin.
That sounds great. Anytime you can have pancakes for dinner.
I know it's somewhat controversial for some, breakfast for dinner, but it's a holy endeavor on Fat Tuesday to do such a thing. So please join us, Jay, and anyone else.
We just had pancakes for dinner last night. So we try to make it a weekly tradition in my house. So that's awesome, Pastor. Thank you for sharing that. Rabbi Tom.
Well, it's great to be here. Let me see. First of all, from my personal perspective, in less than 2 weeks from the time we're taping this, I'm going to be flying off to Israel for a week for a rabbinical convention. So I'm really looking forward to that. And shortly after I get back, we will have our food-based holiday coming up, which is Purim, where we read the book of Esther and the story of the effort to destroy the Jewish people and its failure. And so we will be doing several things. We have there's a tradition of a Purim spiel, meaning a Purim play, that is to say, a play based on the Purim theme, but typically updated to all kinds of contemporary ways. This one is Sesame Street based, and there will be singing, and the title is Shin is for Shushan, Shushan being where the capital where the Purim story takes place. That will be on Monday, March 6th, with the deli dinner starting at 6, and then the Purim spiel and the reading of the Megillah, the Book of Esther, and then we will end with the eating of Hamantaschen, which are triangular pastries filled with all kinds of different things. Some sweets, we're also starting to do savories because people are getting creative. And the word, several meanings, but one is Haman's hat. It looks like the three-corner hat that Haman wore. So it's those are wonderful, and we have our special Hamantaschen bakers at the temple who will be putting those together. So anyone's welcome to join us. Just register on the temple website for March 6th for our Purim spiel, Megillah reading, and dinner.
And Rabbi Tom, if you could remind us of the website for people to go and register.
Okay. Yes. This. I wish it were easier, but it is temple -or Etz Chaim, ETZ.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. Pat Gallagher. I'll call tonight's meeting of the Conservation Commission into session. As with the past several weeks, and as will be the case for the next several months, our Conservation Commission meetings are going to be combined with Open Space and Recreation Plan working sessions where we are hoping to hear from stakeholders on the various topics that will go into the plan. So just before we get started with tonight's session on Schmidt Farm, a quick announcement that we will continue to be operating in a hybrid format. Folks are welcome to be in chambers or participate via Zoom. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to comment, you can access the meeting through the Zoom application, and the meeting number is 876-5181-8384. Or you can use the phone number 929-205-6099. And again, same meeting number, it is 876-5181-8384. Just before getting started, we'll take a roll of the commissioners who are present with us tonight.
Mark LePage.
Michael Ryan?
Jeff Milne.
Meg Hagan.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for being with us again. Brigid, do you want to start with,
I'll take it away.
why don't you take it away? We have a
Sure.
presentation and then we'll open it up for comment and we'll get folks' thoughts, as I know this is a topic that is very top of mind and very important to a lot of us in town. The one note of caution I will say is that, as part of this open space and recreation plan process, this is kind of thought of as an overarching strategic plan. So we're not getting into operational questions day to day. This is more, how do we plan for areas such as Schmidt Farm in a way that, we're providing a roadmap here. And with the overarching goal, for those of you who were able to join us for Tuesday's public hearing, this will sound familiar, that we'd like to set ourselves up to have this strategic plan to be, for, guiding spending decisions at the town level, for being eligible for grant funding at the state level. And so this is the device to do that. So I'll hand it off to you, Brika.
Cool. Thank you. Not cool. Also cool. Are we able to project my presentation up there? Does that?
Yeah, you plug it in.
Yes. Thank you. I am plugged in. It was up there before.
You gotta take that down.
Okay.
You gotta take that down, I think.
Is that a Tyler thing?
Not sure how I can do that on this end.
Okay. I can circumvent it. Are we able to go from this computer?
Yeah, if you use the plug.
Which one? Or, you know what, how about this? I broke the system. This is the one that's traditionally into this HDMI,
Yeah.
and I have it on the webpage, so I'll just go that way. Thank you.
Yep.
It's USB. One moment. I'm sure everybody's waiting. I know. No. I don't know how to control that one. Typically, that's not something I do.
How is he getting that up there?
I don't know. I don't know where that one's coming from.
Usually it comes from one of the cables over by there, not here, so.
Time. Okay, I'll figure it out. Sorry, gang.
If you share a screen from Zoom, are you able to pull it up that way?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Can we switch? Thank you.
Nice.
Teamwork.
Good idea.
You got it, I know. It's a good step, you guys. Okay. Okay. So, this is Schmidt's Farm. Sorry, now it's going to be a little cut off here with everything crowding the screen, but,
It's looking good.
thanks. So, Schmidt's Farm off of Prospect Street. It is a recently acquired property for the town of Franklin. It was a part of the 2016 Open Space Master Plan. It was also part of the Chapter 61 analysis of 2017. The town acquired it by right of first refusal. Precautionary tale, there is a transition period for this property. The current owners have until July 1st to maintain the residence, and then they also have an additional 60-day option. So while it is, acquired by the town, they're definitely still living there, so I would just ask everybody to refrain from visiting, their home for the time being until we have adequate parking and trails and access outlined. So the family also will maintain the property in the interim. And since this is, also a Conservation Commission meeting, I wanted to demonstrate actually the wetland resources that are on the property. So it's hard to see, but the blue here, those are actually wetlands. The red is buffer zone, and then there's actually riverfront area as well. And then you can see all the nice fields that they've maintained for hay, and they've done all sorts of things there. So before we get into what the farm could be, I know everybody has a lot of ideas, and rightfully so. This is a very exciting project. I think this parcel has a lot of potential for collaboration amongst other boards, citizens, residents, all sorts of things, But first, Schmidt Farm, especially after speaking to Linda, her husband Roy, and her brother John, it's a legacy. It's a family, it's a culture, it's a testimony, it's a memoir and a memory. And Linda was, well, actually the whole family, but Linda was more than willing to share photos with me of her family and how they immigrated here from Latvia, now Russia, and started working the farm and creating and carving out Franklin, really. I'm sorry guys, I don't like my back being towards you. So these photos are really in no specific order, but I wanted to put this one at the top specifically for the Conservation Commission, is that Arthur and Arwood Schmidt were a part of the Norfolk Soil Conservation District, and they actually in 1955 received an award for their service in the Conservation District. They also helped with the reservoir in Norfolk County, transplant. But so I thought this should be said and should be broadcast. And for everybody watching at home or this recording, this presentation is also online. So if you want to go back, you want to read, you want to zoom in on photos, you're more than welcome to. So the first family to immigrate to America, and Linda, I'm sorry if you're watching on TV and if I botched this, were her grandparents right here. And these folks right here are their parents. And this was actually taken over in Latvia. So this photo, it's pretty old, and it's on cloth, actually. So I thought that was a really great piece of history. This is in Boston at some Latvian celebration. You can see all of the traditional dress and the lute player. And some of their other family members. I was talking with Jamie Helen earlier today, and we were discussing these old photos and how it was a to-do, to stand up and get dressed. And I mentioned how the baby didn't listen because the baby's face is clearly blurred out. So just, I just thought it was very iconic. So I mentioned that, this farm is a memoir, and it has memories. And this is the 1938 hurricane that actually came through. So it destroyed their brooder house. Their brooder house is bigger than any home I've seen, actually. This photo, working on stones in the elm field, I thought this was notable, especially since now, we try and protect stone walls. So this is your traditional New England farmer excavating their property for New England's biggest crop, rocks. And then them delivering hay into town. Linda said they didn't drive very far, and I would imagine so. This one, of one of the dairy cows. So they had hens, or they had chickens and dairy cows. What they produced were also apples, gourds, hay. I think there's a photo of peaches. They had a lot of things, but I liked that, they named their cow, at least this one, Baby. So their family had picnics on the farm. It might be hard to see, but these are all people. The bar, I thought that was interesting as well. Sweet corn for market. Linda told me that John picked so much sweet corn as a kid that now he doesn't like corn anymore. So this is all corn. And then free range chickens. And being punny, but I don't know if you see that much anymore. The old farmall. Apple blossom tree is here. This is Bruno, calf. Again, hard to see. Good. Weddings. I know that was a big comment for Schmidt Farm. Again, the to-do of getting up and standing in front of, the farmhouse porch to take a photo. Buddy and Prince. And then the barn. The barn is a big ticket item. So it was actually written about in one of the local papers. So the barn is 74 by 34 and is 32 feet high. Can hold 20 cows, a bunch of apples, granary, and 74 tons of hay. So these are people building the barn. Same thing here. Again, those are all people. This photo I thought was really interesting. So here's the actual building structures back here. This would be downtown Franklin. So this is from the farthest west field, looking this way. And I asked how they got these nice panorama views, and she said John climbed trees. So yeah. Again, just another picturesque, iconic photo. And the apple ladder. More of their apple trees. So these photos that we're getting into now was a folder called 1975 All Seasons. I really wanted to show every single photo that was in that folder. I had to dial myself in, so this is what we have. As a transplant, this is what I think of when I think of New England, and I don't think they could have captured it any better.
Is that pond still there?
Yes. So I believe,
It's open as it is there?
no,
No.
and that is a pond they created. So that's the barn.
What river goes through the market?
That's a good question. More of their apple trees. And as I was looking through these photos, it dawned on me that these are people that loved their land. 'Cause they didn't, these are photos that they were creating their memories. I don't know who this little guy is, but this was also a very, iconic farm photo to me. Ringneck pheasants. Oh, I guess there's duplicates. I loved it so much I included it twice. It does look. I admit I cried a little bit at my desk. Oh, well, we can sit on those for a little bit. So, I wrote down some of the takeaways, not to make it too emotional, but, you know, what I would encourage the people of Franklin to think about when we start really brainstorming and ruminating about this property is to at least pay homage to the Schmidt family, you know, to really try and carry forth this legacy of this land, of representing what this means and for who, you know, it's meant for as well. So, other than that, yeah. So we can get into the counselors. You've seen this presentation before. I included some language from the town council presentation of what it could be. So Schmidt Farm is one of the last and largest contiguous parcels of open space in town. It's along the Pan Mass Challenge Route. Oh, this is an old presentation, sorry. So while management decisions are far from complete, again, this is not what the open space plan process is designed to do. That is more for master plan, and thereafter, you know, one can imagine at least a caretaker position that's typical for properties of this size, potential leasing opportunities, CSA opportunities, community garden, pollinator pastures, meadows, hiking trails, passive recreation. And then at the end, now see this to me, these slides are kind of falling like a dud because of all those other great photos, but here are some potential access routes as well, if people had comments to include or that would be influenced by these access routes. So off of Oak Ridge Drive, Tia Place, Bald Hill Drive, Prospect Street, and Nicholas Drive. Nothing is definitive, nothing is set in stone. Again, this is mainly just brainstorming. So with that, I can leave the last 35 minutes open to comments, questions, suggestions.
Okay. Thanks, Brick.
Yeah.
I would just open up the floor if anyone would like to speak on kind of, you know, how you envision Schmidt Farm. I think everyone in this room right here and on Zoom are folks who are very familiar with the property and invested in this property. And so, you know, we'd just open up the floor if folks want to comment in the room, either microphone and on Zoom, if you can use the raise hand function, and we will kind of alternate and go through. Mel,
I'll
you
go
want
first.
to start?
If
You want me to go first? Or?
Yeah, you can go first. I was just going to say, imagine we're going to have a lot on Zoom. If we want to tackle, we can go back and forth.
Alternate back
Okay.
and forth between Zoom and folks.
I can
But-
wait.
No, why don't you start us off?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you. So I don't have Steve here to adjust the microphone.
Name and address, please.
But
Mel.
it's okay. It's okay. My name is Melanie Hamlin. I live at 70 Daniel Street. I'm on the town council, the chair of the EDC, and a bunch of all other kind of crazy things. But this is like this is like a dream come true for me. I think this is like 6 years of like just hoping and working to get to this point. And I'm gonna cry because because Frika showed those pictures. But I think one of the things that I think about a lot is the barn and how it could be used as a kind of a history of Franklin farming. And to keep the Schmidt's stuff there, but also maybe other farms, like CJ's farm, which is a century farm on the other side of Franklin, right? And what we've done in Franklin. And also just to keep some of that hay field hayed by a local farmer, and to have sort of areas where we can teach the kids in the school, so they can go to a farm in Franklin and learn how to farm and what farming is all about. But I'm sure there's other people that have a lot of things that they want to talk about. But I want to thank you for having this tonight, and it's really exciting. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam. Susan Spears, I think you were up first for our Zoom contributors. Feel free to
Thank
unmute.
you. I'm trying to get my camera go. There, I have a camera on. I agree with Melanie 100%. I'm a member of the board of directors of Metacom Land Trust, and I live here in Franklin, 171 Lincoln Street. And I first became aware of the Schmidt Farm many years ago when I actually served on an open space committee that the town had in about 1988. I had a question, a factual question, which was, can you confirm that when we purchased this land, we purchased it for open space and recreation through the CPA, not for any other municipal purpose?
I think that would be a question really for Mark Sorrell, who unfortunately is not with us, but it was purchased through the CPA using CPA funds. So to the extent that that restricts the use, then those restrictions would apply here as well.
Right. I think it's good for the public to remember that when people begin to think about what you do with 216 acres in a town of our size, right? And that being said, I believe it is intended to be open space and recreation, passive recreation, I very much hope. I think there are some site constraints which, although the CPA might allow active recreation, I'm not saying that we don't need it in town as our population grows, but I do think there are a lot of site constraints, and respecting the history, the land, the landscape, and the slopes and the wetlands, I think that it should be preserved primarily as open space and passive recreation. And I would second Melanie Hamblin's comment that I'm very interested in preserving the farm with an agricultural component. And just to go a little bit more into one of the points in the slide presentation, properties like this that have been bought by other communities throughout eastern Massachusetts for the purposes of preserving the land and the landscape and community character, all of which Schmidt Farm clearly speaks to for all of us who know it, that there are many ways to preserve an agricultural component there so that the town is not actually trying to maintain a hayfield or an apple orchard or grow the pumpkins all year long, so that when the school kids want to come, there are actually pumpkins for them to take home. You can lease property that's owned by the town, and there are agricultural organizations throughout southeastern and central Mass and statewide who will help the town find an interested farmer. We have a lot of farmers in town, and we have some people who are still looking for their own more land to farm. And I think the history of that property means that the soils are probably pretty good. And it was sustainable for a small family operation for generations. And I think that those two pieces together is to make sure that we respect the landscape and the ability of the land to provide for certain things of public benefit, and not assume that we're going to convert it to some other use. The town has many, many needs, but I believe the town council and the CPC committee and every other body in town wanted this to be open space and recreation. That does not preclude agriculture, education, etc. It does preclude certain things that the town needs, and we'll have to fund those in a different way. But we can, because we have CPA now. So I hope that this project moves through a public process so that what's finally decided has the support of a large number of people, including the people who are closest to it. My camera seems to be breaking up. I'll stop talking. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susan. Roger, can I pick on you?
Sure.
I know you have some thoughts on
bring
this.
a list tonight. Name's Roger Trahan, 1 Green Street, Franklin, Mass.
also the chairman of the Ag Committee. So I did put together a few thoughts about Schmidt's Farm. I am a lifelong resident. In fact, I believe I went through the school system with one or both of the Schmidt children from there. So we, at the Ag Committee a couple weeks ago, kind of the members that were present that night got together and tried to brainstorm different ideas so that we could all agree upon our thoughts for it. So one of the first things that came up is the importance to preserve that barn, bring it back to a functioning barn. It could be used for public space, rental for functions, could have classrooms in it for agricultural events or even conservation events with walking paths throughout the property with different placards, if you will, that would identify wetlands, identify open fields, gardens, and what could be grown there as well. Around the barn, we thought there may be lead because of the age of the barn, so perhaps we could put pollinator gardens instead of vegetable gardens close to it, but still try to bring the beauty of that barn out, basically, with the plants that were there. We also thought, as far as a parking lot, you'd obviously want it to be pervious and not impervious up there to try to protect things. We also talked about garden beds, and what came up was on King Street there are small rental beds there, but there are people in town that would like a slightly larger bed, so we thought we could start small, turn over maybe an acre, I don't know, and rent out larger spots to families from town that wanted to grow a large vegetable garden with guidelines, obviously. Some of the fields we thought would be good to be hayed by local farmers. We tried to keep it so that we would give at least first preference to a local farmer versus someone from out of town. That being said, we're not against an out-of-town farmer possibly starting like an incubator farm, but we'd like to make it available first to a local person. Maybe with a one-year lease, but options to reapply and re-rent the same piece, because obviously they'd be working this land, they'd be trying to make it better land, and they wouldn't want to work it for 2 or 3 years and then lose that particular piece. So that's what we thought at that point. Smallest section, yes, so that would be those. And then we started talking about trails through the woods. I believe currently the cross-country team in Franklin, they, at least when my daughter was on the team, they would have to be bussed into several different parks throughout the state for track meets, cross-country meets. So there again, if we could partner with the high school, maybe make a few trails through the woods, we could not only save busing costs, but make it more available for practice for cross-country teams. Walking trails through the woods, the SNET is great. I walk it on a regular basis. It'd be good to get a couple different trails in town that people could walk as well with some length to them, 4 or 5 miles or more, you know. And then my wife and I visit a park down PA every 2 or 3 times a year, and there's a park down there that's similar to this. It's an old farm, it has woodlands, it has fields, wetlands, and there's different trails everywhere, and everything is marked off as far as this is a wetland, these are the flowers that grow here. When you get up into the woods, there's a sensory park for the kids with different drums and different things that they can touch and make noise, basically, or climb on. But it's well used by the public down there. Whenever I go there, there's 2 or 3 parking lots, and they're all full. So you could also do, obviously, exercise trail, information trails. And then, you know, find a use to keep at least part of this land in agricultural use, possibly part of it into a forestry plan where you know, you could log part of it and sell some of that logging to pay for other things at this land. So those were a few of the thoughts that we had. As I said the other night myself, I think when you get into this kind of volume in town, sooner or later the town's going to want to put someone over all these lands, a department head or a director or whatever it would be. But that's really not for Schmidt Farm in particular, but I think it's something that should be included in the master plan as well. So those are our thoughts. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Roger. We have one comment on Zoom up next, and then Stacy, feel free to unmute. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Stacy Cobb. I live at 11 Eagle Drive. I run Nature's Nurse Wildlife Rehabilitation here in Franklin. First, I want to say I'm not used to this. I'm speaking publicly, but I did feel the need to reach out about the open space plan for Franklin. I agree that the land should be preserved. And I like, I'm constantly looking for spaces to release wildlife. And the more building that's going on, it's becoming more difficult. So I'd like to see more land conserved for wildlife. I'm also looking for a plot of land for my nonprofit where I can release wildlife, where I can rehabilitate them and release them, because currently I live in a residential neighborhood where that's not possible. And I run the Wildlife Initiative as well, which we're a group that works on environmental cleanups, etc. And I'd love to help the town out on that as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Stacy.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Ed Szymanski, 529 Pleasant Street. I actually participated as a guest in that Agricultural Commission meeting where we talked about those things. And I agree that it'd be great to use this property for agricultural purposes, educational purposes, leasing land to local farmers and all too. But one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that I do a lot of hiking and nature photography and all, and there are a number of designated wildlife management areas in Massachusetts, some that are managed by the state. And I don't know exactly what the guidelines are for that, but along the lines of what Stacy said, as far as her rehabilitating wildlife and just, I had a vision of clearing, walking trails, planting, flowering trees and shrubs and so forth to support the birds and pollinators and things like that, and also incorporating that into trails that were but part of a sort of more official wildlife management area, if that fits in the guidelines. But I think with the wetlands areas and the wooded areas, this would be a perfect use for something like that.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any hands raised. Any other comments? Come on up.
Hey folks, my name's Ray Goulet. I live on Miller Street. I've been a resident of Franklin for 30 years or so. Served on a few different committees here and there, and my kids have been pretty active in doing some great projects around town. My daughter Haley built a dog park. My other daughter worked on the Delcar property, put up signs and such. This is a really exciting thing, right? This is a big deal. I mean, I commend all of you for working so hard on this, because this is great. So many good ideas are not necessarily mutually exclusive, right? Walking trails, farming, using the barn for civic activities, they can all, I think, coexist to some extent. So I think those are all wonderful things. I use the Delcar property all the time to walk my dog. I think that would be fabulous to have some more trails like that we could use. But I'd also like to give a plug for sort of this idea of community-supported agriculture. I don't know if you have seen the model, but Natick Community Organic Farms is a pretty interesting place. My daughter actually works there. I don't know that much about the organization of it. I'm certainly no expert in it. But when I see what they do and how they run things, I think, man, that's a pretty cool model. Wouldn't that be nice to see something like that in Franklin? With a really small piece of land, they managed to have CSA production for flowers, for vegetables, and now for meat, for livestock. So a much, much smaller piece of land. And they, they're not really, I don't think they're particularly profit driven. Their part of their mission is to educate. So, they keep kids busy with after school programs, jobs in the summer, and just generally speaking, provide a way for people to learn about agriculture. So you look at a model like that, and again, I'm no expert in this, I think, boy, that looks pretty attractive to me when I could kind of imagine what this property could be, is seeing a vibrant farm that is part of the fabric of the community and can educate and also produce goods for people to use here in the town. So something like that is pretty nice goal hanging out there that I could imagine. I guess that's sort of it. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you for sharing. It looks like we have a hand raised. Haley?
Hi, I'm Ray's daughter. I am the livestock manager over at Natick Community Organic Farm right now. And I just want to tune in to sort of hear the plans because it is a really interesting model. So Natick Community Farm is owned by the town and it's a nonprofit. So we have sort of town positions and we have nonprofit positions. And we do like a little bit of everything with only about 2 acres of production space. It was created with the main goal of education, which me personally, like, that's huge. Agricultural education is something that we really miss in our communities right now, for sure. And we provide the community with, I think about 40 CSA shares right now, about 20 meat shares, and about 20 flower shares every year on just 2 acres of production. So the capacity to feed the community is really huge, and do honestly a little bit of everything. Educating and providing working opportunities for youth especially.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, I just need a quick follow-up. I had no idea she was going to join us.
Yeah.
I sent her the link and I'm like, she's never going to show up. But the one idea that I forgot to mention is that, knowing, what I know from what it takes to be a farmer every day, we should probably think a lot about whether we really want to tear the house down. Because if you really do need a caretaker for the property, it can be a full-time job running some aspect of farming. So having a living space is something you really want to think about if somebody ends up being a caretaker for the property.
No, I appreciate that. I think that particular decision is probably going to be made by the building department and Gus Brown, and whether, I think it'll be kind of what's needed to maintain it, right, and the cost and all of that. And so, but certainly point taken that I think, and I think too that part of this strategic plan and what we'll be looking at for Schmidt Farm in particular, and the Schmidt Farm conversation is going to far outlive this plan update, but it is going to be looking at comparable organizations and comparable spaces like this, and I think there's going to be a lot of learning about what are some models that work, and what might be a good fit here. So definitely an ongoing process. So thank you, and thank you, Haley. Yeah, CJ, go for it.
All right. Hi, I'm CJ Koshevitz. I live at 87 Lincoln Street. I'm also part of the AgCom. I also have I talked a lot about other farms that are either in Franklin or in close proximity, and I think that this is a great opportunity for a lot of these things to coexist, like walking trails and wildlife, like rehabilitation spots, community gardens, and such. Those types of things I think are absolutely awesome, and I think with that amount of land, we can incorporate quite a bit. Obviously, as the manager and owner of Fairmount, I have a vested interest in like the farm aspect and the agricultural aspect. So I've talked to like other farms that either they're like from Norfolk, Medway, and also in Franklin. And the biggest concern that I hear is community CSA type of models is that it also, there's a level of competition. In some places, I know that like Allie from Night Owl, she's very close in proximity, and then that goes into direct competition with her. So that being said, I love the knowledge and from the community being able to go and participate in farming. I love the community garden aspect of it, but I think if you add like a portion of like an incubator type of way to start your own farm, start a small plot, start and like participate in that level. I know that in the past, like within the past 5 years, I've known people that can't start their own small farms or small like little herb gardens or essential oil things because they don't have the land here. Maybe that's an avenue because they had to, I know some people that have had to leave other, like Massachusetts in general, because the space is just like, just too valuable, it's too hard to come by. So that was my only hesitation in that route. Obviously, I'm in one side, I have a different viewpoint, but that's where I was coming from, and that's my thought, because I love involving the community, and I think that is an absolutely like the number one goal of this property is to include the community in general in growing, how to learn, how to do those types of things. But I don't want to see other farms, especially young farms and farms that have like just need that room to grow without such a force that it could be right next to them. So that was all I had to say.
Thanks, CJ. Go ahead, Mark.
Since I'm here, I might as well comment. One model that we haven't really discussed is preserving it just the way it is, having the hay fields, passive recreation, the barn is a functional venue. But I would like to see that there has to be an agricultural component to it and some kind of educational purpose for children to understand how and why it's so important for farming in this community. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 10 more minutes if anyone else, either on Zoom or here in person, has any comments or questions or things that we can kind of think about. And again, this has been a great conversation, and I think the whole goal here is for us to be able to kind of listen and hear from the community, and so this has been great.
Actually, Rika, a quick question for you.
Sure, Mark.
How much of the acreage, or is all of it still being actively farmed, is an agricultural property, and are the apple trees still used?
The apple trees are gone for the most part,
They're
yes.
gone, okay.
Maybe 80 acres, 60 to 80 acres are still fields. To that point, so Schmidt Farm, if you were to look at the parcel right now on GIS, sorry, I'm trying to be quick on it. I'm very stimulated, so now I'm just still trying to digest. We're actually maintaining 214 acres. So total, Schmidt's Farm has been 216, but the family is taking 2 acres for themselves.
Yep.
So as Linda quoted, she can have her log cabin on the hill. So they will actually still be right next door to Schmidt's Farm, and this will be their front yard.
CJ and Roger and other ag folks in the room, if, in an incubator type model, what is the right amount of, like, what amount of land would you think would be kind of,
I guess
the
it would
minimum
depend
amount
on the
that you would?
scale and what they're trying to do. I think within the small discussions that we had, starting off smaller is better. Little chunks that you can handle, and then seeing how those work, and then if it is successful, expand that. That's like, so we were taking, like, so the community garden example is like, okay, you start with a plot, like a small section that's doing really well, but the demand or the need is higher, so you break off another chunk. So that was what we were kind of thinking, is start small, make sure we do it right, make sure it's well maintained, and then we could always, with that amount of acreage, you could definitely expand, so you could keep it as is, and then just like chunk by chunk as needed, and then see what the community wants or desires and what we're able to develop at a good pace and like a efficient and well-maintained place.
I have 3 comments. Kobe wrote in that he would like to echo everything previously said: community farming, historic ag education in the barn, water management, education by the wetlands. Thank you, Kobe. Walking trails, leased ag management. Only piece he would add would be to leave the center of the barn so it could be flexibly used for various events. Haley mentioned that she recommended looking to new entry for incubator models. And then just one, regulatory component to this. Because it's now a town-owned property, so previously it's been able to have ag exemptions for its use around wetland resource areas. Now that it's a town property, we have to be mindful that those ag exemptions do not apply, so that means those buffer zone requirements are now in place. So, just to think about.
To answer your question a little while ago, I believe Night Owl Farms is about 6 acres of land there that she farms, and I think that was started a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I don't think she doesn't farm the whole thing.
Okay.
Maybe
So
2
it's
acres
smaller
or
than that.
something.
Yeah. And then there's another farm that I keep honeybees at Rentham, and that's about 6 acres also, and she has, quite an operation going over there, so it doesn't have to be big acreage, I don't think, to be a startup.
Not at all. I was gonna say, I know we should probably be on the microphone so everybody can hear us, but Melanie Hamlin, everybody, I feel like there's great potential to connect for this farm with the students at the Norfolk Aggie as well. And I think when you talk about sizes of plots, for a young person starting, a 1/4 acre is pretty big. I have one myself, and it's really a lot of work. So I think you start, maybe you could lease 1/4 acre plots to kids that are from the Aggie, or like Haley, or like there's so many people out there that want to do things that can't afford the land. And that's why, as CJ said, that's why people leave Massachusetts. And we need more smaller farms for food security. Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. No, and I think, that kind of illustrates the planning and kind of long-term component of this, because, I think it seems like some of it is going to need to be like in small increments of physical space, and making sure that, we're not going to plan for 100% of the area right away. It's going to be a plan for a very small portion of the area, knowing that, we want to give it time and let it simmer a little bit.
Just a couple quick comments, and going right off of Melanie's comment, looking at food security for our community, I wonder, as we're talking about farming, if, I'm not sure what their needs are, but looking how this land could help support the Franklin Food Pantry along the way. So I think that's some good food for thought. And the other thing we've talked about on other weeks is, with previous projects, is how we can bring accessibility to our different open spaces within town. So I think that would be a challenge with a big piece of, farming property here. But I think it's worth thinking about how we can make this an inclusive space for people within our community.
Ryan, Jetty, and I, right now, one of their access trails goes right through the wetland, as is, as their exemption was. But Ryan and I had talked about we need to lift that up as a boardwalk so it can still connect both of the fields. And then we were talking about having it be wide enough so everybody can go through it. So we are on it.
Thank you. I love that.
Yeah, love it.
I'm thinking about like placards, making them, if we're looking at doing things along the boardwalk, things that are at a height where someone in a wheelchair would be able to easily read and be educated as well. And we've got some good opportunity to make this inclusive for everybody.
Get some Coney Island binoculars, put them out there.
Rail trails.
Yes.
One other thought, there's a number of scouting organizations in this town, and I noticed that the part of this is a wooded area, believe it or not, they might fit into their programs for either camping training, cooking training, pioneering training, whatever.
Sure. Steve Sherlock has a question.
Steve, go ahead.
Yep, thanks for the opportunity. As one who uses the community garden, which was referenced, the food pantry has 10 to 15 beds there that provide some of the fresh fruit, vegetables, etc. for the food pantry. If that is an option to continue and or expand into either the plots as we already have, or as was mentioned earlier tonight, even making some larger plots available, I think the food pantry would be looking to expand accordingly. The one caveat with that, though, is it also takes people to help volunteer. But with the turnout tonight, I expect that would not be a problem once we have the great opportunity to continue to make it happen. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Steve. That's good.
Any final words? Michael?
Got a question for Haley Goulet, if you're still on.
Yep, still here.
Just wondering, what kind of staff do you have there farming that? Would you say 6 acres, 2 acres?
Yeah. So we do a lot of education, so we have a lot of education staff. For the production team, it's me, the flower manager, and the veggie manager. And we pretty much run on volunteers.
Thank you.
Well, just wanted to thank everyone again. This your insights and information is really, really helpful to us as we're trying to think about how best to formulate the plan. And again, this is a plan for a plan in a sense. So this conversation will be, we're not starting it and we're not finishing it, but we appreciate all of your contributions and feedback. So thank you. I think we'll recess for 5 minutes before we start up our normally scheduled programming.
Forward to this conversation for quite some time.
So have I. And